Welcome back to Afternoon Live. It's a common adage that when you marry your spouse, you also marry their family. So what do you do when your relationship with your mother-in-law is far from ideal? Here to offer advice, we welcome the author of the new book, You, Your Husband, and His Mother, Clinical Psychologist Dr. Tracy Dalgleish. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you for having me here today.
I think a lot of people can relate to experiencing these difficult dynamics, and we're kind of framing this in a husband, wife, and his mother situation.
Yes. Yes, so many people can relate to it. And a lot of people come to me saying, why didn't you title the book Him and Her Mother? Or what about other family members? And here's what I see through the research and my near 20 years working with people is that most of that tension shows up between daughter-in-law and mother-in-law.
It can be so difficult, and you've identified a lot of different types of mother-in-laws. You can kind of go through a few of us and we can maybe see if we recognize any of these traits. Tell me about a martyr mother-in-law.
Yes, Hannah, I want to start this conversation by first saying these are not diagnoses, so let's not go to our partners and say, I think I've discovered who
Right.
your mom really is. But instead, when we know who we are working with, who we're interacting with, and the behaviors that we're seeing, we can understand how we then can show up and best interact with that person. It gives you a lot of agency and power with that. So that martyr mother-in-law is someone who gives and gives, but there's guilt attached. She'll often say something like, after all I've done for you, or she'll go to her group of friends and she'll say, I'm so exhausted after looking after the kids. But this is surprising to you because you haven't heard that. And she keeps saying yes. And one of the things I guide people in the book to do is to remember first that the guilt is not for you to take on, but instead to really be sure for yourself and with your partner what your boundaries are. And I walk couples through how to actually identify those boundaries.
Yeah, I love the way you put that. Yeah, let that guilt go somewhere else. It does not need to enter your consciousness. What about a victim mother-in-law?
The victim mother-in-law type feels like the world is happening to her. I remember with one couple, it felt like he had to run to his mom every time to save her. And that's a really tricky triangle that they were getting in because it was like he was the rescuer and it fed into this role his mom was taking on. And one of the best things for this, for couples in general, but also for daughters-in-law to remember is not to step into that rescuer role. You can validate the struggle that she's having and then change the topic. It's not adult children's roles to solve parents' problems.
That can be so hard to hear. I mean, I know it's true, but a lot of us have our best intentions, right? We want to help, so we want to show up and rescue, and ooh, that can be so tough. Okay, we'll talk about one more type here, the controller mother-in-law.
Yes, the controller mother-in-law believes that her way is the best way. This is the mother-in-law who walks in the house after you've just had a baby and says, this isn't how we do it. Here's how we sleep. Here's the guidance that we followed in our day. She knows what is best. She's the one that's going to tell you that Thanksgiving only happens this way and it has to happen on this day. And of course, when we look at these types of mothers-in-law, they do come from legacy patterns. So it's not a way to shame or blame women, but instead to really empower couples to understand, who am I working with? And then how can I apply the steps in the book to then make real changes in our relationship?
Right, and it can be so hard to accept when you see frustrating behaviors over and over again. Do you just kind of have to really accept, I can't change this other person no matter how hard I try?
Hannah, I think this is a place that so many people get to when it comes to dealing with people outside of us, whether it's your mother-in-law, that tricky coworker, or that friend you want to remain connected with. It really is this idea of dropping the rope. I'm not able to change that person, and yet I can come back to myself, find my own choices. And together with my partner, we decide what happens for our family. And that's really where couples start to struggle, is that it's so tricky for us to be on the same page without vilifying his mom or another extended family member.
Well, and that puts the husband in a really tricky situation, right? I feel like there's so many well-meaning husbands who find themselves stuck in the middle, and they probably feel like they can't win either way sometimes.
Yes, and this is really those communication strategies that I outline in chapter 4, because this is a communication issue. Every couple in the last near 20 years has come to my office saying, we want to be on the same page. We want to solve our problems and we desire having extended family relationships. And so when we go to our partners, we don't want to enter into blame, name calling. We want to talk about what it is that we need and desire, and also how we can then get on that same team and communicate our needs. And Hannah, communicating boundaries is one of the hardest things for couples to do from that connected same team place. And that's one of the reasons why step 4 really outlines how couples can do that together.
It's so hard, I think, even for the most emotionally intelligent people, setting those boundaries with in-laws, it feels really complicated, and you don't want to overstep and offend somebody and make a new mess, right?
You have just named the legacy pattern of why this dynamic is so tricky. Because, of course, in family systems, there might be unhealthy patterns of codependency or denial or rigidity. And sometimes we don't even know that that's happening. And at the same time, we want to remain close to family members. We don't choose a partner thinking to that one day when we're going to leave that relationship. And that's really where this resource came from, Hannah, because there is no book available for the daughter-in-law and mother-in-law relationship until now.
It is so tough, and so many people struggle with it. So I'm so glad you literally wrote the book, and thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
Of course, Dr. Tracy's book again is You, Your Husband, and His Mother. We'll have more information on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.